I'm Josh McGarry, and I've been told that I can be hard to understand sometimes. But with some help from technology, maybe we can fix that. This is Frameworks.
Have you ever felt like there's a fundamental glitch in how we talk about truth, faith, and facts? You know, like we're all running on some old, buggy operating system that we never even chose to install? Well, it turns out that feeling points to a real idea, something with a name and a really deep history. And it's a concept that completely reframes the entire game.
All right, so think about it like this. In any game, right, you've got rules and you've got a referee. But what if one of the players suddenly just decides the ref is biased and that they, the player, should be the one to stand back as a neutral observer and judge the ref's calls? I mean, it sounds kind of crazy, but this is the core of a massive reframe that happened a long, long time ago. One of the things I've been studying puts it perfectly. It's an attempt to reframe God as a biased ref.
And this slide, this really shows you the critical switch. We usually think of sin as rebellion, just breaking a rule. But what if it's actually reframed as a strategy? See, this isn't just about breaking the rule anymore. It's about questioning the authority of the rule maker. It's a super subtle move, but it changes everything. It shifts the conversation from I broke your law to you have no right to make that law in the first place.
So, where did this whole strategic move even come from? To really get a handle on the glitch in our modern world, we have to go way back. Like, back to the very beginning. Let's take a look at the original reframe. Okay, so this is the key term right here, presumptive neutrality. And that word, presumptive, is so important because it's a totally unearned assumption. It's this wild idea that a creature can just step outside of the reality made by a creator, plant a flag on some imaginary neutral hill, and then judge everything, including the creator, from that supposedly objective spot. And here's the immediate result. This is something that came up in my research. By offering this idea of a neutral judging platform, the whole dynamic gets flipped on its head. All of a sudden, the creator looks like some kind of controlling defensive tyrant. And the creature? Well, they look like their moral peer, totally capable of making an unbiased call. The player is now judging the ref. The things I've learned actually label this as the very first epistemological distortion. Now, epistemology is just a fancy word for how we know what we know. So this term is basically saying it's the first major bug in our software for knowing what's true. It's like a faulty filter got installed in our minds that just turns reality completely upside down.
Now, this original glitch, it didn't just stay a glitch. Oh no, it grew. Over centuries, it actually evolved into the default operating system for our entire culture. And it ended up splitting our worlds and our minds in two.
And this is what that split looks like. A scholar named Nancy Pearcey calls it the two-story worldview. So down in the lower story, we've got the public world. Facts, science, reason. This is what's considered real, objective truth for everybody. But then, up in the upper story, we have the private world. Faith, values, morality. All the stuff that gets dismissed as just your personal preference or your subjective feelings. And the rule is they're kept in totally separate rooms and they are not allowed to mix. So how in the world did this split even get started? Well, the theologian Francis Schaeffer, he traces a key moment all the way back to Thomas Aquinas. The idea that took hold was that while our human will might be corrupted, our intellect, our ability to reason was basically fine. It was untouched. And from that one little idea, bam, human reason became autonomous. It became independent. It became the undisputed king of the lower story. Okay, so that is a huge philosophical leap, I know. So let's just quickly trace the timeline of how we got from a single theological idea all the way to the split-screen reality that we all live in today.
You can see how this idea just builds over time, like a snowball rolling down a hill. In the early church, truth was all seen as one integrated thing. Then, around 1250, Aquinas introduces this nature/grace split, creating two different levels. Fast forward to the 1700s, and the Enlightenment basically kicks grace out of the building and officially crowns reason as the king of public life. And by the 1900s, the split is complete. It gives us the world we all recognize today, this hard and fast divide between public facts and private values.
That's a lot of history. I get it. But the reason this deep dive into the past is so important is because of how profoundly it messes with our present, especially if you're trying to live a life of faith right now. This quote from Nancy Pearcey's work just drives the point home so perfectly because it's so visual. A teacher in a Christian high school literally draws the divide on the board. Heart on one side, brain on the other. Religion is for the heart, science is for the brain. Don't mix them. This isn't some abstract theory from hundreds of years ago. It's being taught in classrooms today. Piercy uses this really powerful phrase to describe what happens next, a kind of Christian schizophrenia. And it's that feeling of having a split personality, right? You've got your Sunday self, and then you've got your rest of the week self. And they live in two completely different worlds, speaking two totally different languages. Does any of this sound familiar? That feeling of having a split personality? Have you ever felt your faith just get totally steamrolled in a college class because it couldn't seem to connect to science or philosophy? Does your job feel secular and maybe less important than sacred ministry work? This is the fallout from the split. It makes faith seem totally irrelevant to public life, and it leaves us pretty much unable to meaningfully engage with the culture around us. So, here's the crucial point. How do we fix this? I mean, how do we break out of this two-story prison? Well, it all starts by pulling the rug out from under the entire structure, by exposing the central myth that it's all built on. This right here is the mic drop moment from my research. That lower story, that whole world of public facts and reason that claims to be neutral, it's not neutral at all. It's just another belief system. Secularism, naturalism. They are worldviews that start with their own set of faith-based assumptions, like the idea that matter and energy are all that exist. Let that sink in for a second. The claim to be the unbiased, neutral, view-from-nowhere observer is, itself, a worldview. It is a faith position. There is no neutral ground. There is no player who gets to step off the field to judge the ref. Everybody is in the game. So, if neutrality is a total myth, the game changes completely. The question isn't which view is religious and which one is rational anymore. The real question is this: which worldview best explains the whole of reality? The world of science and reason? Yeah, of course. But also the world of love and justice and beauty and your own sense of self. Which story actually makes sense of all the data, not just half of it? Now that's the question worth exploring.